I'm actually kind of frustrated because I would have picked a conference title game score correctly if David Akers would have made one field goal and the Niners would have kept the drive alive long enough for him to make another one. I could have been right and said 34 to 24. But it's okay. The 28 to 24 victory, regardless, I still picked the winner in this game correctly. But I'm going to get started by saying that Atlanta did the exact same thing they did against Seattle. Got off to a big lead and fell apart. But this time, there wasn't no safety net. Let me tell you something. Seattle, minus their secondary, is an average defense. Minus Chris Clemens in their secondary, an average defense. San Francisco, minus their secondary, still one of the best damn defenses in the league. Atlanta, they failed to do anything, really, in the second half. I mean, they really did. I mean, it's kind of pathetic because both home teams in these conference championship games failed to score at all in the second half. They did. I mean, you look at the Falcons running game. I said they would not have the same success against San Francisco that they did against Seattle. I was correct. But I vastly underestimated Julio Jones and Roddy White. I thought that they'd be less of factors than they were. I thought that Terrell Brown and Carlos Rogers, the corners for San Francisco, would hold them in check more than they did, and they didn't. But San Francisco took my advice. They took my advice in finding Vernon Davis and making big plays in the passing game. I mean, Kaepernick's numbers aren't like, world-beating numbers like they were against the Packers. 16 to 21, 233, a touchdown, no picks, 21 yards rushing on 2 carries. Again, only amounts for 254 yards, but hey, his team won. And I think you can ask him and ask any quarterback in the league, what would you rather have, numbers or wins? And they'll take the wins every day. The numbers are nice, but the wins are what you want. And Colin Kaepernick in the first half played average, but once he got a couple of series under his belt, he settled in very nicely. I mean, you take away the first 3 series of the game, first 2 series for San Francisco and the first 3 for Atlanta, then San Francisco won this game 28-7. They absolutely blew them out because Kaepernick got comfortable and Matt Ryan really didn't do much of anything. I mean, 30-42, 396, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. That's a really good game out of Matt Ryan, but that 1 pick late in the red zone, I think kind of cost them the game and a lot of their momentum. But the one guy in the defense for San Francisco who was everywhere and just made some incredible plays was Patrick Willis. 12 tackles, 11 solo. He was all over the field. That whole linebacking unit played well. Navarro Bowman had 4 tackles. Ahmad Brooks had several tackles. Ahmad Brooks played well. All those guys played well. The linebacking core had a great performance. I know they didn't register any sacks as a unit, but they tackled well, and pretty much the interior of the field and dealing with the Falcons running backs, they didn't allow Atlanta to move the football on the ground at all. It basically was down to Matt Ryan winning the game or not. And Atlanta's defense really failed to show up in the second half. Now, I know San Francisco only put up 2 touchdowns in the second half. Both rushing touchdowns by Frank Gore. However, you had the sense that really they were struggling getting off the field. They were struggling. Because I know San Francisco only went 2 for 6 on 3rd downs in the game. But if you look at it, they didn't even get to 3rd down a lot of the times. Because very often, Atlanta would just, give up yards and San Francisco would get the 1st down. So Atlanta did basically what they did last week against Seattle. But they didn't have the safety net of realizing that, we're dealing with a rookie quarterback or we're dealing with an old, injured defense. You're dealing with a better defense, a better team, better coaching. And that's why Atlanta lost this game. They got out-coached and they got outplayed. Particularly from the 17-0 point on. Because here's the thing with Atlanta. They're a team that reminds me of former tennis player Todd Martin. Because here's what he would do. If you had him down 2 sets to love on a tennis court, you had to worry because how many comebacks he'd made in his career from 2 sets down. he'd come back almost every single time. His record in 5 sets is phenomenal. That's the same thing with Atlanta. You get them down, and they're gonna fight their asses off, and they're gonna try to find a way to fight back. But if you give them the lead, then they choke and they struggle. And that was proven the last 2 weeks. Now, they escaped against Seattle with the last-second field goal by Matt Bryant. They didn't get a second chance because San Francisco wasn't about to choke away the way Seattle did and allow the Falcons to go down the field. I will say that San Francisco outplayed them first quarter on. Frank Gore, 90 yards on 21 carries, 2 touchdowns. He played very well. Randy Moss having a couple nice big catches. Vernon Davis having several big grabs, 5 for 21 yards a clip, 106 total. The pass rush in this game I thought would give Atlanta more problems. I thought that San Francisco would get more pressure on Matt Ryan. I mean, they hit Ryan 4 times, sacked him once. I thought they'd get at least 3 to 4 sacks. I know Justin Smith's playing, but he's clearly not 100%, and it's reflected on the rest of that pass rush because Alden Smith has not had a sack in 4 games. 5 games now, counting this one. So looking at it from from an analyst point, you can clearly tell that they're hurt. You can clearly tell that particularly Justin Smith is hurt, and he's playing as good as he can, and the defense is still playing well. But Atlanta's offensive line held up pretty well. Pass protecting, that is. I mean, Julio Jones and Ronnie White, 18 catches, 282 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And I think 2 or 3 grabs for at least 23 yards. Just absolutely torching the San Francisco cornerbacks. I mean, Carlos Rogers and Terrell Brown are 2 pretty good cornerbacks, but it's not like they had any great success at shutting down that passing duo because they just went up and down the field on them. Tony Gonzalez, 8 catches, 78 yards. If you look at this game, I mean, you'd think that Atlanta might have beaten San Francisco. More first downs, more plays, more yards, pretty much the same in yards per play. More yards passing. But a key stat was in the red zone. When San Francisco was in the red zone, they scored 4 out of 5 times touchdowns. Atlanta, 1 out of 3. When you get in the red zone in the NFL, you got to punch it in. You have to be able to punch it in nowadays if you get the ball in the red zone. And Atlanta didn't do a good job of that in this, really at all in the game, because the 10-yard pass to Tony Gonzalez at the end with 25 seconds left before halftime, that was pretty much it. I mean, Julio Jones had a 20-yard touchdown pass, but that wasn't so much of a red zone play because it seemed like it was a little bit outside. I'm talking once you get in the red zone, you have to score. They didn't do a good job of that. San Francisco did, and that's why they're going on. I think San Francisco, this is a really big win for them. I mean, to have both Jim Harbaugh, the coach of the 49ers, and John Harbaugh, the coach of the Ravens, meeting in the Super Bowl, this is not something that you can send to Hollywood and expect them to write a script on because they'll throw that thing right out. What the Harbaughs have done has been unbelievable. I mean, San Francisco 60 minutes away from a 6th title to tie the Steelers. Something I don't want to see happen, but if it happens, it happens, and I tip my hat to them. I might not like it, but I got to deal with it. Now, from here, Atlanta, they have the pieces in place. Tony Gonzalez will probably his last ride, and I wouldn't put Atlanta as a top 4 team to win the Super Bowl next year. I'd probably put them as maybe a 7th or 8th favorite. Because that other teams, such as, the 3 that were in this playoff race are here. Denver's not going to fall away. Seattle's going to be a year better. Even teams who did miss the playoffs, like New Orleans, going to get their coach back. And, Minnesota, they get another year out of Christian Ponder and Adrian Peterson together. So, Atlanta's going to have competition in the NFC, particularly in their own division with New Orleans. Another year of being together in Carolina. In Tampa Bay, they had another good year. proving from last year's abysmal season. So Atlanta's going to have some competition. They really are. In all honesty, I think they should have won this game because they pretty much just tanked the second half. It seemed like emotionally they just were gone. Because Matt Ryan had over 270 yards, I think, at halftime, and the second half really didn't do anything. Nobody did anything in the second half for Atlanta. They just pretty much emotionally just fell apart. And I think that falls a lot on coaching because I don't think that, Mike Smith's brought that point home that, hey, you got to play as hard as you can for 60 minutes. I don't think he did. Jim Harbaugh did, and so did John Harbaugh, and that's why their teams are in the Super Bowl, and Bill Belichick's and Mike Smith's teams are not. But the one other point I'd like to make in this game about San Francisco is their receiving core is not bad. And LaMichael James, LaMichael James is pretty slick. Rookie out of Oregon, that guy's fast. That was a great pickup by San Francisco in the draft to steal LaMichael James. Because 5 carries, 34 yards, a touchdown, 6.8 per clip. I mean, he made several really, really big runs in that game. He really did. It was the first score on the board for San Francisco with 8:08 left in the second. We'll have to see how that continues. So if they'll continue to work him in there alongside Frank Gore. Because as of right now, they got a really good thing going out there in San Francisco. Alright, I will probably do a breakdown by position every single day leading up to the Super Bowl, starting sometime later this week. I'll probably break it down by position, quarterbacks, running backs, etc., until we get right up to about a day or two before the Super Bowl. I'll break down who I think the edge goes to in several key categories. San Francisco versus Baltimore. San Francisco wins, they tie the Steelers with 6 Super Bowl wins, and they have 0 losses. If Baltimore wins, then Ray Lewis goes off in the sunset with his second title. Should be a hell of a war.